The movie star married me out of spite for his first love. After 3 years of marriage, they were entangled, hug and kiss during filming, and speak flirtatious words during interviews. Netizens all say that I am a poor stand-in. I never got angry, I just smiled and helped him clarify every scandal. Until later, I got pregnant unexpectedly and had an abortion without telling him. He was so angry that he asked me why fiercely. I stroked his eyebrows and replied calmly, "Because I don't love you. The person I love is his deceased brother." 1. The whole world knows that Mark Taylor married me to make Amy Harris jealous. They broke up before getting married, and Amy went abroad in anger. Mark didn't spoil her and married me instead. I wore a wedding dress that didn't belong to me and married a man who didn't love me. Everyone said that when Amy came back, Mark would dump me. But in the 3rd year of our marriage, Mark seemed to start liking me. He would make breakfast for me, coax me to wake up, and kiss my lips when I was acting coquettishly. At the sweetest time, we cling to each other till death. In the dark night he whispered to me, "Little sweetheart, give me a child who will be as good as you." We are like an ordinary loving couple. Until the day I was actually pregnant. Before he could tell Mark, Amy came back. That day they reconciled. 2. The day Amy returned to China, there was a class reunion. I heard that her family went bankrupt, and she was looking for someone to borrow money from. When Mark led me into the house, we saw a rich male classmate getting Amy to drink. He said he would lend her 100,000 yuan just for a drink. Amy choked so hard that tears came out of her eyes, but she still smiled and drank it all. When she saw Mark coming, she suddenly panicked, probably because she felt embarrassed, and lowered her head abruptly. Someone started to make a scene saying, "Amy, if you need money, ask Mark for it. Based on your previous relationship, if you go to bed with him, he can't treat you badly." Mark glanced over coldly and said slowly, "Stop disgusting me." He leaned on my shoulder, cigarette in mouth, and continued, "If anyone makes my wife unhappy, shut up and get out." Everyone laughed and called me sister-in-law, saying how envious they were that Mark loved me so much. No one knew that if Amy hadn't suddenly appeared, Mark wouldn't have come today. Amy stared at me, biting her lip tightly, holding back tears. The man who had just forced her to drink put his hand on her shoulder and rubbed it. "Ask her. What should I do? Mark seems to not want you anymore. But it's okay. He doesn't want it, but I do. If you are willing to take off all your clothes and serve me well in bed, I will give you some pocket money. How about that?" Mark crushed the cigarette in his hand, feeling unhappy, and his face turned cold. He still felt distressed. Amy held back her tears and looked up at Mark. She whispered, "I don't want to. In this life, I only love one person. Even if he doesn't want me anymore, I won't let anyone else touch me." Mark suddenly used force on his hands and pinched me, which hurt me. The male classmate was humiliated, smiled, and called Amy a bitch. "Do you think you are a chaste woman? Damn it. I gave you the face, but you didn't want it. So I'm going to sleep with you today." He pulled Amy up and walked out. Amy was drunk and leaned limply in his arms, struggling. Mark's eyes were fixed on Amy. I can see that he is ready to kill for her. Just before Amy was about to leave, Mark finally couldn't pretend anymore. He took a few steps forward and kicked the man who was hugging Amy. He pinned the man to the ground and beat him. With red eyes, he cursed fiercely, "If you dare to touch Amy again, I will chop off your dirty hands." The scene suddenly became chaotic. Someone was recording the video, so I quickly grabbed Mark's sleeve, trying to get him to stop. He turned around and asked me coldly, "Is it your turn to control me?" I was stunned for a moment, then gently let go of my hand. Amy rushed over and hugged him, crying, "Mark, please don't fight for me. I feel so bad when you get hurt. I was just so scared that you would really not want me anymore." Mark didn't push her away. He held her in his arms and protected her well. As everyone watched, he took Amy away, left me behind. 3. Mark didn't go home that night. Amy posted a Weibo in the early hours of the morning saying, "You said you would never hold someone else's hand again." The accompanying picture is a photo of 2 people holding hands. The man in the photo, with a cinnabar mole on the back of his hand, is Mark. And I am the other person whose hand he will never hold again. 10 minutes later, this Weibo post became a hot topic. My hater left a message to Amy saying, Come on, sister. You and Mark are a perfect match. You two must get back together. I don't care about my values anymore. I support Mark's cheating. I just can't bear to see that scheming bitch Donna happy. Many people are waiting to laugh at me. Some people also left a message to Mark. Brother, that person is not you, right? I have been a fan of you for so many years, and I can see how good your sister-in-law is to you. You must not let her down. Mark and I have a lot of couple endorsements tied to us, and the penalty for breach of contract is astronomical, so we are most afraid of causing a scandal. My agent couldn't contact Mark, so he could only call me and ask me to think of a way to lie to netizens and say that Mark and I were together. I flipped through the photo album and found that there were very few photos of Mark and I. In those few group photos, I was the only one smiling. At the end, I posted a photo I took a long time ago of Mark sitting under a desk lamp reading a book. The dim light enveloped him, making him look just like the person who always appeared in my dreams and made me cry. As soon as the photo was posted, netizens left comments. Look, Mark is at home with his wife. If anyone says our Mark is cheating again, I will tear his mouth apart. Everyone is scolding Amy for being shameless and hype-seeking. It wasn't until a few minutes later that Mark retweeted Amy's Weibo. Under the hand-holding photo, he said, "It's me." He frankly admitted the fact that they were together, exposing my self-directed clarification. He dumped me for Amy again. Amy's fans rushed into my Weibo and laughed at me. I was so happy when I was slapped in the face for pretending to be cool. Donna, you liar. Sister Amy gave you 3 years, but you still didn't win Mark's heart. It's really useless. Who said I want Mark's heart? I deleted all the information about him from my phone. I want a divorce. 4. The next morning, the company asked me to go back to deal with Mark's scandal crisis. Unfortunately, I ran into Amy as soon as I arrived. Maybe Mark didn't want to leave her alone, so he brought her here. As soon as she saw me, she apologized. Donna, I'm sorry for last night. I was drunk and posted something on Weibo, and Mark followed me and made a scene. I'm sorry for causing you trouble. I've already told him that he only cares about me and doesn't think about you at all. What a straight man, so stupid. What people on the internet say is so rude, saying you are my stand-in. It's so funny. They don't know how much I want to thank you for taking care of Mark for me for so many years. She smiled sweetly at me. I smiled back at her. I am Mark's wife. A wife takes care of her husband. There is no need for outsiders to thank her. As for you, you were called a mistress last night, but don't take it to heart. Amy's expression changed. She looked me up and down and suddenly stared at the ring on my hand. He smiled and said, Donna, you are wearing my wedding ring. It's time to give it back to me. As she spoke, she tried to pull my hand. I got annoyed and swung my arm, accidentally hitting her in the face. Amy suddenly swung her bag at me, and the metal on the bag scratched my forehead and blood came out. She hit me so hard that my ears started ringing. I raised my hand to hit back, but someone grabbed my wrist from behind. Mark suddenly appeared and warned me coldly. Donna Walker, dare you touch her? When I turned around, he saw the blood on my face, was stunned for a moment, frowned at Amy, and asked, Did you hit me? Amy shook her head with tears in her eyes and said, Mark, she called me a mistress and wanted to hit me. I was hiding from her, and my bag hit her. I didn't mean to do that. I apologized to her. Mark felt distressed when she cried. Hearing her say this, Mark rubbed the top of her head and praised her for doing a good job. If anyone hits you, hit him back. You don't have to apologize to anyone as long as I'm here. I suddenly envied Amy. Actually, I am also a tearful person, but the person who felt sorry for me is no longer here. Manager Stephanie couldn't stand it anymore and pointed at me and yelled at Mark. This is your wife. Mark, are you blind? You're holding on to a green tea girl and won't let go. How is Donna inferior to Amy? Have you forgotten that you wanted to have a child with Donna? Have you forgotten that you felt at home only when you were with Donna? You're hurting her like this now. Are you sure you won't regret it later? I subconsciously touched my belly. Inside my body, there is a budding child. Mark smiled, glanced at me lightly, and spoke calmly without any emotion. Maybe I like Donna, but Amy is back. Donna Walker, Donna Wilson, Donna Taylor, All of you need to step aside. In the past, Mark probably just liked me briefly and superficially. Now, Amy is back, and he is going to love her. I took off the ring on my ring finger that didn't belong to me and gave it back to Mark. Mark's smile slowly faded. After a moment's silence, he reached out to take it. Stephanie pulled me back, looked at my belly and winked at me. Donna, don't be silly, you've already. Amy interrupted her and reached out to grab the ring. She put the ring on her hand and found that the band was a little small. Her smile froze slightly, and she raised her hand and threw the ring into the trash can. She hugged Mark's arm and said coquettishly, "Forget it, don't be angry with me. I think the ring worn by other women is dirty. I don't want it anymore." Mark ignored her, just stared at me and asked in a deep voice, "What's wrong with you?" I glanced at him indifferently, turned and left. Mark, I'm pregnant, and you don't have to know. 5. Mark is an extremely perceptive person. Stephanie's hint was so obvious that I thought he could guess about 70% of it. I have been taking medicine for a long time, and my health is not good, which will affect the development of the fetus. This pregnancy is an accident, and the doctor suggested that I have an abortion. I also don't want to continue to be entangled with Mark because of this child. Before the operation, I moved out of my home to avoid meeting him, so that he wouldn't cause me trouble. Although Mark probably didn't care. He didn't look for me, and continued to live his own life well. Stephanie sent me a video. It was at the auction that Mark gave Amy a gorgeous diamond ring. And Amy smiled, and threw herself into his arms. The talented man and beautiful woman are a perfect match. Yeah, how could I forget? As Mark said, Amy is back. Both Donna and Donna's child have to stand aside. Fine. 6. The day before the operation, I suddenly felt very anxious. I remembered that the jade Buddha amulet my mother asked for me before she passed away was still in the safe at home, so I planned to go back and get it. When I got home, I found that the door password had been changed. I stood at the door of my house and couldn't get in, and suddenly I felt very embarrassed. Holding my anger, I called Mark. The person who answered the phone was Amy. She smiled smugly as she spoke. "Donna, today is my birthday, and Mark insisted on taking me to watch the meteor shower. We are not going back tonight." I told him before that lovers who make a wish to a shooting star will be together forever. I didn't expect that he still remembered it. I'm so happy. But I can't give you the password. After all, we're not at home, and it's not appropriate for an outsider like you to go in. I hung up the phone, opened the password lock, and entered today's date. The door opened. The password is Amy's birthday. All traces of my life in the house have been wiped out. The wedding photo of Mark and I on the TV cabinet was replaced with a photo of him and Amy. They were still very young that year, and Mark hugged Amy and smiled happily. The succulent plants I raised were thrown away along with their pots, and my study became Amy's piano room. I was stunned for a moment, ran into the bedroom, opened the closet, and found a whole row of sexy lace pajamas inside, which were not mine. The safe was placed at the bottom. I pressed my fingerprint and with trembling hands, took out all the jewelry, cash and documents inside. But I can't find the jade Buddha amulet that my mother left for me. That's the only thing my mother left me. Amy knows it too, so she threw it away. 7. Amy has always hated me and my mom. When I was in school, my mother worked as a nanny in Mark's house. Amy came to Mark's house with her parents. It was the first time we met, and Mark's parents introduced me to them. He said I was obedient, sensible, hardworking, and very smart. Amy pretended to be very friendly and said she wanted to be friends with me. Behind my back, she said to me, "So what if you're a good student? You work hard to get into a good university, but you'll still have to work for us after you graduate." Her mother is annoying too. She smiles all the time. Why should a nanny be happy? An old poor woman gave birth to a little poor woman. It's disgusting. My mom picked me up from school and met Amy. She would call my mom a bitch in English with a smile. My mom didn't understand, but she still told me that she was pretty and cute, and stuffed her with dried sweet potatoes that she had baked herself. Amy turned around and threw it into the trash can, laughing at my mom and saying, "It stinks, even dogs won't eat it." My mother was at a loss for words. Her face was so red that she couldn't raise her head. which made people around her laugh. I dropped my school bag and started pulling Amy's hair. My mother saw me being beaten and rushed over to shield me behind her. She was kicked down by Amy's friend, and suddenly a lot of blood flowed out from under her. That day, my mother was diagnosed with uterine cancer. Those terrible cancer cells appeared secretly and then quietly took away my mother's life. My mother asked for that jade token for me by going to Lingshan Mountain without telling me before she died. She kowtowed every step she took. She said that the Buddha at Lingshan is the most spiritual Buddha. I held back my tears and asked her why. She smiled and said it was a secret, and she couldn't tell me. In fact, I know that when I was a child, I had a serious illness, and my mother went to Lingshan to pray for Buddha's blessing. She made a wish that she would give half of her life in exchange for my health and safety. Later, I recovered from my illness. The efficacious Buddha took my mother away. After Amy found out, she laughed at my mom and said, "Poor people only know feudal superstition. What's the point of keeping garbage? Why not sell your kidney and liver to give her daughter some money?" 8. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Mark came back with Amy. When she entered the room, Amy hugged Mark's neck and begged him, "Mark, sleep with me tonight, okay? I want to give myself to you." She pressed her lips against his as she spoke, but Mark pulled away. I sat on the sofa and watched Amy act like a bitch. Mark's eyes fell on me. Amy was stunned for a moment, turned around and saw me, and smiled provocatively. "Donna, if I knew you were home, I would have asked Mark to come back earlier. I didn't see any shooting stars tonight, and he was afraid I would be disappointed, so he insisted on taking me to set off fireworks." "Donna, I'm sorry. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Don't be mad at Mark." I had drunk some wine, and I stood up groggily and walked towards her. Asked directly, "Where is my jade token?" Amy blinked guiltily, still smiling. "Are you talking about the jade token in the safe? I accidentally broke it when I was packing my things. It didn't look worth anything, so I threw it away." My tears suddenly fell. My hands and feet became cold in an instant, and my lips trembled uncontrollably. All I could think about was the afternoon my mother died, when she hugged me tightly and wiped away my tears over and over again. She told me not to be afraid and said she would not leave. She said she had already talked to Buddha about it. As long as the jade token is there, Mom will be there. I swung the glass at Amy, and it shattered on the marble, slicing her leg with the shards. She was scared and took 2 steps back, hiding behind Mark. She cried pitifully, "It hurts." I tore at her collar and asked hysterically, "Where did you throw it? Where did you throw it?" Mark came up to stop me, and I slapped him and yelled, "We haven't divorced yet. Why did you bring her back? Why did you let her touch my things? Why do you? You can't wait to sleep with her? Mark, you're disgusting." He hugged me savagely, stroked my hair, and said in a deep voice over my voice, "Donna, calm down. I'll take you to find your jade token, okay? Please don't cry. I beg you not to cry. It hurts me to see you crying." 9. My jade pendant was thrown away by Amy this morning, and it should not have been disposed of yet. Mark drove me to the garbage station at full speed. He accompanied me to rummage through the garbage dump. As a person with obsessive-compulsive disorder, he was not afraid of dirt or stink, and his hands were covered with mud. I searched from dusk till dawn but found nothing. When the sun rose, I suddenly felt extremely helpless. The golden light from the sky stung my eyes. I bit my lips to hold back my tears, holding back my strength, and not daring to let myself cry. The old couple at the garbage station felt sorry for me and came to help me look for garbage. Finally, when I was about to despair, the grandmother called me. "Girl, come and have a look, is this it?" I stood up suddenly. The world was spinning around me for a moment, and without caring about anything else, I pulled my shoes out of the garbage heap and ran over. Grandma was holding a sandalwood box filled with scattered jade pieces. "It is my jade pendant, but it is really broken. Actually, I should be happy. Just find it, just find it." I tried hard to smile, but as soon as the corners of my mouth moved, tears started falling. "Mom, you said the jade pendant is here, so you are here, right? But if the jade token is broken, will you still be there? Could you please not go and leave me?" Mark reached out, held me in his arms, and comforted me. "Don't be sad. Wait for me to find someone to fix it. I pushed him away, shook my head and said it was okay, no need. After a moment, Mark's voice turned cold. He almost gritted his teeth and cursed me. Donna, every time you tell me it's okay, I want to strangle you to death. Can you die if you rely on me once? I looked at him quietly. Mark's cell phone suddenly rang. It was Amy calling. He hesitated for 2 seconds, but finally picked up the phone. Amy was crying over there. Mark, I wanted to go find you and apologize to Donna. But I'm lost, and there's a man following me. I'm so scared. Mark didn't care about me anymore, and he just walked away. Coincidentally, the hospital also sent me a text message. Today is the day I have a surgery appointment. On Amy's birthday, I lost my mother and a child I had never met. 10. Before entering the operating room, the anesthesia began to take effect. I fell into a dream of memories. I was 16 that year, and with my own efforts, I was admitted to the top high school in the country, going to the same school as Amy, Mark, and the boy I loved. From then on, my nightmare began. I don't understand why Amy likes to bully me so much. She brought her friends, stuck leftover bubble gum in my hair, and threw used sanitary napkins into my school bag. They would stretch out their feet and trip me as I passed by. He would also pour dirty water on my head when I went to the toilet. It's not like I didn't resist, and the teachers knew about it, but they didn't do anything. Later, I had my period and had a stomachache. I just found the painkillers and was about to take them when Amy snatched them away. She smiled and asked me to kneel down and beg her. I gritted my teeth and endured it, but the pain tortured me again and again. I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to hold on any longer and would give in to Amy. The classmates around me were all betting on how long I could endure. I looked at the red $100 bills on the table and burst into tears. Suddenly someone leaned on my desk, casting a shadow over me. He picked up the money, counted it, and smiled in a ruffian way. It's okay, it's not a small amount. Just consider it as your filial piety to Grandpa. Seeing him put the money into his pocket, those people didn't even dare to fart. He hooked his finger at Amy and continued to smile, but his smile was cold. Give me the medicine. I adopted this sick little duck. From now on, she belongs to me. I will punish anyone who touches her. Everyone, do you understand? He is Mark's jerk brother, always causing trouble and never learning his lesson. It turns out that I don't like him very much. But today he helped me. I guess it was because he was covered in bruises from a fight with someone else. The elders in the family would punish and insult him without asking why. Only my mother secretly cared about it and applied medicine to his wound. He seemed to be returning the favor. From that day on, I, a sick little duck, also had my own loyal keeper. When I woke up from anesthesia, Stephanie held my hand. She shed a lot of tears, and I asked her why she was crying. She said I had been talking in my sleep for a long time. She asked me, "Where is the boy you loved?" I looked at the tall rooftop opposite and closed my eyes. Whispering softly, he flew away with the wind. 11. I turned off my phone and disappeared for half a month. I heard from Stephanie that Mark was going crazy looking for me. The first thing I did when I was discharged from the hospital was to go see him with the divorce agreements. Mark was silent for a moment and smiled coldly. He glanced at the agreement and threw it on the coffee table. He looked up at my belly and said slowly, "Before the divorce, is there anything else we haven't discussed?" I smiled calmly and answered him, "I used to have it, but now, I don't have it anymore. I've taken the baby away. Don't worry. You don't have to worry about anything." Mark's pupils trembled, and he was stunned for 2 seconds. He lowered his head and suddenly smiled. "Donna, you disappeared for half a month just to do this? Huh. I was afraid you would be upset. So I traveled all over the country to find an expert in jade restoration. And this is what you do to me." He reached out and pulled me down on the sofa, pinning me under him, and asked fiercely, "Why are you doing this to me? How dare you? How could you bear to do that?" Maybe I was too obedient in the past. Everyone thought that I loved Mark terribly, including himself. I looked up at his face and gently stroked his eyebrows. Tell him calmly, "Mark, the person I love has never been you. You look really ugly when you lose your temper. You're becoming less and less like him. Finding a substitute did bring me some comfort at the beginning, but after a long time, you will find that he is not himself when he smiles, and he is not himself when he doesn't smile. Even his hug wasn't as warm as his. I'm tired of it. Mark knows who I'm talking about. His tears suddenly fell and hit my cheeks. I've lived long enough to see all kinds of strange things. Mark, who was so high and mighty, didn't even cry on the day Amy passed away. Today, she actually cried for me. It's so interesting and disgusting. I told him, don't feel wronged. The beginning of our relationship was originally a transaction, wasn't it? You use me as a tool for your anger, and I use you as a substitute for my entertainment. We owe each other nothing. Mark interrupted me before I could finish my sentence. His eyes suddenly turned red, and at that moment he looked like a lost puppy. He said, Donna, you have no right to tell me that we owe each other nothing. You know, I wasn't happy at all when I gave Amy the ring. I tried to love her like I used to, but all I could think about was you. If you disappear, I'll be so panicked that I'll wake up in the middle of the night. Donna, you made me fall in love with you. And now you tell me we owe each other nothing? Fuck that. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and pinched my face, like a ferocious wolf, gritting his teeth and threatening me. Want a divorce? You're dreaming. Amy, who had been hiding in the room and eavesdropping, opened the door, walked out in a daze, and stood in the middle of the living room in a panic. She choked up and whispered, Mark, what are you talking about? 12. As Mark was about to stand up, I reached out and grabbed his tie, pulling him closer to me. I saw Amy clench her fists and I smiled. I asked Mark, although we were not in the same class at school, you should know how Amy bullied me, right? We don't have to get a divorce, but I want you to take back all the money you gave her to pay off her debts. Now get her out of here. Amy was anxious and cried, Mark, everyone is young and ignorant at times, right? And you know I was just joking with Donna. If she's angry, I'll apologize to her, okay? She fell to her knees and begged, Donna, Mark is all I have. Please don't take him away from me, okay? Mark, you've seen how scary those debt collectors are. If you really don't want me anymore, if you want the money back, I might be. Mark frowned, stared into my eyes, hesitated for a long time, and finally said, I'm sorry. He is always like this, saying he loves me, but when it comes to making a choice, he always sides with Amy. I laughed and scolded him. Why were you pretending to be affectionate in front of me just now? You don't have to apologize. I was just teasing you. Mark, who you love is none of my business. Mark's eyes hurt for a moment, then gradually turned cold, and he pushed me away. He walked closer to Amy, slowly held her in his arms, and comforted her softly. Be good, don't be afraid. It's all my fault. It's my fault for talking nonsense. I won't abandon anyone, and I won't abandon you either. I promise. Amy pounded his shoulders and cried aggrievedly, but she hugged his neck tightly and did not dare to let go. Seeing how scared she was, I felt so happy. 13. The day Mark and I divorced, Amy followed. She held Mark's hand tightly, fearing that I would give Mark some drug, and he would be seduced by someone else. When she got the divorce certificate, she was visibly relieved. While Mark was getting the car, he came to provoke me again. While we're having a quarrel, you can be Madame Jo for 3 years. Just consider it as a reward from me. Donna, remember, you will always be the poor kid born to a poor kid. Be careful from now on, or I'll kill you. I reached out and grabbed her hair, and she screamed in pain. I smiled and whispered to her, Amy, I have evidence of your murder. Her face instantly turned panic-stricken. I stared at her with satisfaction and continued, but don't worry, I'm not as cruel as you. I don't want you to die. I just want you to live a life worse than death. 14. After we officially announced our divorce, Mark could no longer get rid of the label of cheating on us. He doesn't care. He is a male star and an award-winning actor, so this kind of scandal is really harmless to him. Someone will choose to forgive him. He began to take Amy to various public occasions, issued notices to whitewash her, and paved the way for her to act. Mark is rich and powerful, so this little matter was quickly handled. When we met again, Amy had finished filming a big-budget movie and made a high-profile comeback. Tonight is my senior's birthday, and I have to come if he invites me. As soon as I arrived at the door of the banquet hall, I saw Amy and Mark greeting me. Donna, long time no see. I heard that you recently shot a niche film? Did you encounter any difficulties? Why did the resources downgrade so much? In front of Mark, Amy always pretends to be well-behaved. She has also forgotten what I said would make her life a living hell. Maybe she was fine after watching me for so long that she thought I was just trying to scare her. Stephanie said to her in disdain. Amy, if you don't understand, don't talk nonsense. Niche themes don't mean downgrading resources. The director has won international awards. It's really offensive to say that. Amy's expression changed and she smiled again. She leaned gently on Mark's arm and said coquettishly, It doesn't matter if I offend people. I have my husband anyway. We used to be like this. If I got into trouble, he would cover it. As long as he was around, I wasn't afraid of anything. I was too lazy to pay attention to her. So I paid the gift money, signed my name, and prepared to leave. Amy suddenly called me and took out an invitation from her bag. Donna, I forgot to tell you, Mark and I are getting married in October. I hope you can come. Mark frowned and glanced at her lightly. No one expected that I would stop, look at the pink invitation, and accept it with a smile. I chatted with Amy for a while. You guys have done a great job keeping it a secret. I haven't even heard of it. Unlike my time, your husband insisted on live streaming the entire process, wanting the whole world to know that we were married. Looking at the scenery, it's actually quite annoying. Seeing Amy's expression change, I walked away and threw the invitation into the trash can. Mr. Mark, Ms. Amy, I hope you have a wedding that you will never forget. 15. I heard that Amy had a long argument with Mark about the marriage, so they changed the secret wedding into a full live broadcast. She is so stupid. What's good about a wedding that's just a show? What Mark really wanted to give her was protection. But unfortunately, she didn't understand. I'm counting the days until they get married. After that class reunion, I received an anonymous video. I don't know which old classmate told me. George Taylor's death was not a suicide. I'm sorry. I didn't dare tell you before, because I was afraid of Amy's revenge. George, I haven't heard anyone mention his name for a long time. That night, I watched the video over and over again, and finally found out why he died on the day he fell from the rooftop, the day I was about to confess my love to him. It turns out that it was because of me. 16. On the day of Mark and Amy's wedding, I stayed in front of the live broadcast, afraid to miss their happy expressions. Amy, wearing a haute couture wedding dress, walked slowly along the flower path covered with white roses. Mark was waiting for her at the end, so gentle. It deserves the saying, lovers will eventually get married. With the witness of the pastor, they expressed their true feelings to each other and vowed to be loyal to each other forever, never leaving each other. No matter how old or sick they are, they will never leave each other. The riot started from this moment. A video suddenly appeared on the internet on a large scale, and the location was on the top floor of the school. There are two people in the picture. The clearly visible ones are Amy's slightly immature face and another boy who looks very similar to Mark. It was snowing that day, and Amy was standing on the edge of the rooftop swaying. She cried and asked the boy, "Do you prefer to watch me die than to be with me?" The boy was a little impatient. "How many times do I have to tell you that I have someone I like? Are you fucking deaf?" Amy didn't believe it and continued to argue. "Who is the person you like? Who is it? There is no one prettier than me in the school. Could it be that bumpkin Donna? Why would she? I've liked you for 2 years. I like you so much that I'd even die for you. Would she dare to do that?" Perhaps because he couldn't bear to hear the person he liked being insulted, the boy smiled coldly. "Amy, I know exactly what you are. Your little tricks may be enough to fool Mark, but you are not qualified to play tricks on me. I'm just saying one thing, hand over Donna's photo. If you mess with her again, I'll kill you. Do you believe it?" Amy stared and didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, she suddenly jumped off the rooftop with a smile, shrugged and said, "You really have no taste, really. Do you know how many people like me? You are just the least favored child in the Taylor family. Why are you being so arrogant to me? I give you face but you don't want it. You want Donna's nude photos, right? Okay, come get them yourself. If you can't get it, Don't blame me for spreading it around, so that all the men in the world can see what kind of person that bumpkin is." She pulled a memory card from her pocket and held it aloft. The moment the boy rushed towards her, she suddenly squatted down. That day, the road on the rooftop was very slippery, and the wind on the rooftop was very strong. A boy turned into a butterfly, stayed for a short while, and then flew away on the wind. I still remember that it was a dark day. He rubbed my hair and asked me to wait for him after school to go home together. I touched the written love letter in my desk and nodded with a red face. Later, he went out and never came back. That love confession letter is still treasured in my school bag. 17. During the live broadcast, someone stopped the ceremony and showed the phone to Mark. Amy's face changed. She grabbed Mark's collar and cried, don't look, Mark, that's not real. I didn't mean to do that. His death has nothing to do with me. I didn't expect the rooftop to be so slippery. How could I have imagined that he was so useless that he couldn't even stand steadily?" Mark pushed her to the ground. Her diamond headband fell to the ground. Her hair was scattered, and her makeup was smudged. It was really embarrassing, and it made me feel so happy. "Amy, when I said I'd make your life a living hell, I wasn't just saying it." This incident caused a huge public outcry, and people began to come out online to list all the bad things Amy had done since she was a child. Some are true and some are false. Netizens began discussing the impact of social status, family background, and growing environment on children's personality. Some people say that there is a kind of children in the world who are born bad. I totally agree. Amy had a bad influence on society, was brought to court and sentenced severely. No one could save her. Mark was also implicated, banned from the industry and kicked out of the Taylor family. The funniest thing is that I used to hate George the most, and even after he died, I was still cursing his parents. He suddenly appeared on camera to show off, saying what a filial child George was. Although he had a bad temper, he had good character. Their tears seemed real, but they didn't even know what kind of flowers George liked. There were large patches of chrysanthemums in front of his tombstone. I had to run over several times before I could clear them away. He hates chrysanthemums the most. He is very picky, and always says that chrysanthemums stink. I cleaned his little home for him, and sat beside him in the sun. I really want to talk to him. What are you talking about? Let me think about it. Let me tell you something you haven't heard yet. Something about me that I like about you.